Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 and the premiere of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. We are going to kick off a brand new game here. Say hello to Valentina Kerman, start new, and let's play Kerbal Space Program. Go ahead and choose our SimGamer TV flag here, career mode. In career mode, you have to manage all aspects of your space program. Funds, reputation, and science are all active, and contracts are available at mission control. Difficulty options, we'll just play with stock normal. And, actually, no, I'm going to make one small change. A couple small changes. Missing crews respawn. I'm turning that off. I want to make sure that if I lose my crew members through some stupidity of my own, that, well, they're going to be dead forever, and it will be a bit of a loss. No entry purchase required on research. We're going to disable that, which means when I purchase a new tech node, I will need to pay for each individual part as well. Everything else, we're going to stay just the way it is. And start this thing off. Gene Kerman says, nice to meet you. I'm Gene Kerman, Flight Director, and your guide for this quick introduction. I'm not going to bother reading that. I figure that if you guys are going to play the game, you'll read that yourselves. And I'll just say a couple of words of intro about this series in general. This is the official Kerbal Space Program retail release series. We're going to do a Let's Play. I have no particular endpoint or end goal other than to cap out the entire science tree in this Let's Play. And so we're going to go ahead and keep on working on that until we get that all done. Those of you who are subscribers to my channel have been watching this game develop over beta. You've been seeing my particular playstyle. You kind of know how this format works. This is going to be pretty similar. This particular episode is the kickoff episode where we're going to go ahead and have a nice long extended play, and so we'll take some time to go over some things that are important to people starting off their new careers. This is the Space Center. There are a few buildings around, but for the first mission, the only ones we need to worry about are these two right here. We have Mission Control and the Vehicle Assembly Building. So the first thing we're going to do is hit Mission Control and see if we can't pick up a couple of missions. They want us to launch our first vessel. Launch your first vessel off the launch pad or the runway to achieve this goal. And they want us to escape the atmosphere. Breach the atmosphere by flying a vessel to an altitude of 70,000 meters to achieve this goal. We're not going to be able to achieve this goal right away, but when we take a look at them in the active tab, you can see that they don't have a deadline. The deadline is never. So there's no chance of ever failing this particular mission. In career mode, we're going to be managing our funds. Funds are what we use to pay for our space program. We need funds to upgrade our buildings, which gives us more capabilities over time. We need funds to build our rockets. All of our rocket construction projects will cost funds. Or at least to launch them it will cost some funds. And any crew that we're going to hire above and beyond what we already have is going to cost some funds. So now that we have missions selected, the very next thing they're showing up here in this little contracts thing. We also have some default missions which have been given to us by the Records Society. Basically, set a speed record, set an altitude record, and set a distance record. So as we complete those records, automatically we'll be getting cash payments for all those types of records. But we do have these other two missions we want to accomplish. One of them is to do a little bit of science. So let's find a way to get some science and get some money. Into the Vehicle Assembly Building. Welcome to the Vehicle Assembly Building, says Werner von Kerman. Hello, I'm Werner von Kerman, Chief Rocketry Officer. This is the Vehicle Assembly Building. Here is where you build spacecraft, and later roll them out to the launch pad for flight. Pretty impressive, isn't it? And you can read the rest. So here we are once again in the Vehicle Assembly Building, getting ready to build our rockets. Over here on the left-hand side are all the parts that we have available in the various categories. We don't have many parts available at all to start off with. Down here we've got some information about the rocket in general and any problems that we might be seeing in the old design checklist. Here we have the contracts that we've accepted and any messages that might be coming in. So just turn that off. and start building our first rocket. Every single rocket needs some sort of command pod, whether it be manned or unmanned. In this case, we're starting off with the Mark I command pod. Originally built as a placeholder for a demonstration mock-up of a rocket, the Mark I command pod was heralded as a far safer and more reliable option than its predecessors by rocket scientists throughout the world. It is now commonly seen in active service. So we have this guy. We have some additional things by right-clicking on it, such as it has a reaction wheel, which means it can actually pivot itself around without any thrusters. It has the reaction wheel uses a little bit of an electrical charge. It has science equipment on it. You can do a crew report, and that gives you information on that science thing overall, whether or not you can run the crew report multiple times, or if you can reset the crew report multiple times. It requires electrical charge, and reset costs us a little bit of electrical charge. And then it has monopropellant. Now, since monopropellant is a fuel used primarily for RCS, that's the reaction control system, like thrusters that you'd use to move the ship around, either turn it and stuff like that. We don't need all that, so we're gonna right-click on the craft to see what options we have available, and we're gonna turn off the monopropellant, or not turn it off. We're gonna unload all the monopropellant. That isn't strictly necessary. I mean, if you just want to start off with a really quick ship, get your first missions done, you can just put this on there, toss a parachute on it, and go hit the skies without any particular problem. On top here, we will stick the Mark 16 parachute, and we'll set the minimum pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of customize all these things, really. Set the minimum pressure to 0.5. That gives us a later deployment on the parachute. The engines. The only rocket engine we have is this solid fuel. We can see here it's propellant or solid fuel. Flame out under 10%. The engine cannot be shut down. It also can't be throttled. So I'm going to go ahead and set my thrust limiter to, say, 50%. Now again, you don't have to do this. You can go balls out and get yourself really something quite fast. And you probably won't die. I don't think you'll die. This game has, it's one thing about Kerbal Space Program is that the physics in the game are pretty darn real. There's atmospheric resistance and aerodynamics and all that kind of stuff. You have to worry about re-entry and your craft burning up and those kinds of things. So anyway, I've stuck on a couple of mystery goo containment units, and the ship is pretty much ready to go. Before you deploy your ship to the launch pad, take a look at the design checklist, and it'll give you some warnings. This parachute will activate in the first staging group, and this parachute will activate at the same time as an engine. So those are problems. Obviously, having a parachute activate at the same time as an engine is not terribly great design. So we're going to use this interface over here, which is the staging control, to add another stage and move the engine down to it. Staging counts from the highest numbers down to the lowest numbers. So the first thing that's going to happen is this engine will activate, and then the parachute will deploy. When we're out there on the launch pad, I'll show you how you activate each of the stages. And that is pretty much it. This is the first record setter. That's what we're going to call this craft. And we'll launch it onto the launch pad. Okay, so here we are on the launch pad, which is not much more than a gravel pile, maybe with some cement on top. I'm not entirely sure. But here's our rocket. We'll take a look around at the scenery we've got going on here. Mountains in the distance, our Kerbal flag. There's the buildings around there looking rather sparse. Some hills over there, the plains. You can see another island in that direction. Over this direction is the water. Looking good. I'm not going to do much more than get this thing ready to launch. So I'm tapping the T key to activate this stability enhancement system. Because we have a pilot on board, he can actually take over some of the functions of steering this craft and keeping it flying straight and narrow. In this case, since we have a solid rocket booster that doesn't have a throttle, all we need to do is activate the first stage and the engine will light off. So I'm going to tap the space bar to get this first stage going. Kaboom! Just like that. And our rocket is up and on its way. We're breaking world records of speed, more speed, and that is it. Our rocket has run out of fuel, and we're breaking records for speed and altitude all over the place. So, as we go up, our rocket tends to want to face that direction. Let's take a look at these messages. So we got a whole bunch of messages now. Hey, we launched our first vessel, a very nominal launch, giving us some funds and a little bit of science and a little bit of reputation. We set a record of 150 meters per second for some funds, 300 meters per second for some more funds and rep, an altitude record of 3,500 meters for some funds and some rep, and that's all we've got on this particular launch. We're coming down pretty fast, so I'm going to go ahead and activate the parachute here. It should actually open up on its own any moment. But while we're free falling, there it goes. The drogue is enabled. It'll begin slowing us down. We'll observe the mystery goo. So most of these parts have right-click menus you can use, and I'm just right-clicking on this science piece of equipment here and taking a look at what the mystery goo has to say about the situation. And it says the goo jiggles and wobbles as the craft flies. Now, while we're here, we're flying around. Jeb can give us a crew report about the situation. He says the shores look inviting, and you watch the waves roll into the coast for a little bit of science. We're flying over Kerbin's shores. We're going to wait probably until we touch down, and it's going to take us a little bit to get there. We'll wait till we touch down before we do anything else, like observe the other mystery goo. So most of the experiments can only be executed once at a time in any particular situation. Like, for instance, I can't do another crew report. I'd have to replace the old one. I could observe this mystery goo again, but in fact, I think I will. We'll go ahead and show that. Since I have two mystery goos that are both in the same situation, which is flying over flying at Kerbin, the second one won't be worth quite as much science, but that's okay. That's not going to be a terribly huge problem. We will find new places to observe this mystery goo. We don't have no idea what this mystery goo is all about. All we know is that it wiggles and jiggles as it flies. At 500 feet above ground level, the parachute is in full deployment, and we are slowly coasting down for our first completed mission. While we're waiting around here, we can tap the C key to actually look into the cockpit of the Mark I. All we can see is blue sky out that little window. Oh, there we go. You can double click on the window to actually see what it looks like. So yeah, we can see blue sky, and we're kind of coming down. Our viewpoint is upside down. And these are the instruments. Here's our altitude, altimeter, 250 feet falling. Vertical speed indicator says we're coming down about 6 meters per second. And our radar altitude, this is actually this one right here, right in the middle of the screen, is a really important instrument. It actually tells us how far above ground we are. So we'll be using that oftentimes for a lot of our landings, especially on places like Moon, or Mun, as it's actually pronounced, and Minmus and things like that. SAS, any particular stages we have going on, an atmospheric thing. Oh, we've touched down. Let's take a look. So here you are. We've touched down, and successfully completed this mission. So now we have a chance to EVA. Just have him take a step out, hang on the thing here, and he could also do an EVA report. He says it's a most precarious situation. So yeah, we'll go ahead and just put him back on the pad there and recover this vessel. So upon recovery, we're given this little summary thing here that tells us how much science we got from each of the experiments. So we can see here that the first mystery goo was 7 science and the second one was 1.6 science. So I'm not going to repeat mystery goo while flying around Kerbal. It doesn't do us really any good. We've got 22.7 science from the missions we did, and 1 science from completing one of these contracts. So, parts. We recovered about 2,800 funds worth of parts, and our crew gained an experience point. Looks like we didn't. Oh yeah, we did. We got 1 contract, so we got that thing done. Breach the atmosphere by flying to an altitude of 70,000 meters to achieve this goal. All right. So we're still looking at achieving the breach the atmosphere goal. That's going to be a bit of a lofty goal, not to not to use too much of a pun. And escape the atmosphere. Archives. We have room for another contract, so let's go ahead and... Actually, the normal routine is after completing any contract, before you go back in the contract building and you have science left over, it's time to go into the science building and take a look at the tech tree. So now that we have some science, this is where we would go to unlock any particular instruments and stuff like that. So this is where we started. We started off with 5 parts available because they were part of this starting node, which is researched, and we have 23 science, so we can actually choose. How much does this science thing cost? It doesn't say 20. So we can actually choose to unlock some additional nodes. Our first nodes to unlock would probably be these 2. Basic rocketry, which has a liquid fuel engine and a liquid fuel tank, as well as a larger solid fuel booster called the Hammer. So we will research that one and purchase all the parts for 4,800 funds. And go over here to the Engineering 101. And as we unlock these nodes, we see that other ones become available further up the tree. Engineering 101. Research that one for 5 science, please, and purchase all the parts for about 8,100 funds. So for the first few missions, those are pretty much the buildings you need to worry about. Contracts, vehicle assembly building, and research and development. So we'll get our next contract here, which is to achieve an orbit around Kerbal, which along with escape the atmosphere makes up a pretty lofty goal. But we might be able to work on that with this particular set of rockets. And that would give us a pretty large funds injection. So we'll go ahead and get this guy ready to leave the atmosphere. I think we can keep those things on there just like they are. We're going to set ourselves up. We now have a new capability because we've unlocked those science nodes. We have a stack decoupler, which allows us to separate the rocket into multiple stages. And we will do that like so. This pressure seemed a little low for my taste. I'm going to try 0.35 and see how that works out. We have the mystery goo canisters right there. We'll bring those down with us. Fuel tanks. Let's put one of these little guys on here. A Reliant liquid fuel engine. And once again, just double check our monopropellant isn't there. We don't need it. So we're going to build basically a 2-stage rocket plus recovery. Just about like that. I'm going to set the throttle limiter to 50% or so. And I'll use the default staging that they have pretty much set up right now, just so we can see how that works. And then in my next mission in this episode, I will record breaker. This is the record breaker. We're going to break some of our previous records. We're probably not going to achieve space or orbit, but that's okay. I want to take things a little bit slowly. Yeah. So this is the default staging that they have set up, and what I'll do is I will show kind of how I tune this staging up to be a little bit more efficient for the type of flying that I like to do in the next mission. So until then, well, we'll take a look at that later. Right now, it's time to launch. So here we are, it's mission 2. We have Jeb in the cockpit. And we're going to, once again, hit T to turn the SAS on. And this time, since we have a stage right here that's got a liquid fuel engine, a liquid fuel engine responds to throttle. So I can use shift and control to actually control the throttle of this liquid fuel engine. We'll keep it at about 50% for now. SAS is on, and we are blasting off with a kind of a low thrust booster here, pushing us up and away from the launch pad. Now, before I get rid of this booster, I actually do want to tip over sideways, because I don't want that thing coming and crashing down on our buildings and things like that. So we're going to aim towards the sea, or the ocean, and head that away. Stage that off, activate the next engine, and we are racing away from the ground. Even only at 50% throttle, we're bursting through the sound barrier. A new record speed, a new altitude record. Altitude record of 11.5 kilometers reached. And that is it for this stage. So we'll go ahead and shut down that engine. And as we climb up here to the upper parts of the atmosphere, a world record of 19,000 meters established. A first land distance record of 5,000 meters. That's 5,000 meters away from the Kerbal Space Center, which is pretty awesome. World record of 26.5 kilometers. And we are still climbing. Let's see what our mystery goo looks like up here. The goo seems to be getting very cold now in the upper atmosphere. I'm only going to keep one of those observations. And we will have Jeb perform a crew report in the upper atmosphere. You record the crew's assessment of the situation, which was always worth a little bit more science. And we are as high as we're going to get. So we'll go ahead and observe this other mystery goo while we're out here. And in order to make sure that we have the safest recovery possible, we are going to turn off SAS and dump this heavy engine. And then activate our parachute. We'll gain some speed falling down here. Land distance record broken once again. So mission number 2 is breaking lots and lots of records. As we sort of free fall. Just waiting for our parachutes to deploy. If I see that everything is looking happy and healthy, then I'll fast forward time to the actual splashdown event. But hang on while I just wait for this parachute to deploy. So I'm deliberately taking things a little bit slow, kind of going one step at a time through these missions, because you really have to be considerate of a lot of stuff like aerodynamic drag forces and heat and all those kind of things acting on your vessel. The sudden pull of a parachute, which is activated. There it goes. A 15G pull. Maybe I'll turn that down even more. So yeah, our parachute successfully deployed. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward in time until we reach splashdown. So hang tight. We'll be right back. All right, here we are, 50 meters above the water, getting ready to splash down. Let's go ahead and get a nice zoomed in look here of everything as we come on in for our nice soft landing in the water. Splash. There it is. I don't want to get another crew report. We're going to leave that just like it is. We could EVA and get and do another EVA an EVA report, but I'm not going to worry about it actually because I don't want to mess with all that right now. We're going to go ahead and just recover the vessel. And we got 16.4 science earned in the while flying this thing. Parts recovered, 2,500 funds and parts recovered. And Jebediah did not gain any experience because we didn't really expose him to anything new other than flying. But we now have 30.1 science, which is definitely enough to grab one of these 2 nodes, or one of these 3 nodes. So I'm going to research stability, reaching for the stars with keeping your spacecraft pointed generally in the right direction. We have how hard can rocket science be anyway, and how hard can aerospace engineering be anyway. And now we're going to reach for the stars with this one. Go ahead and get those, and spend the 6,500 funds to buy up all of these parts. Ka-ching! Now we can build much more complicated rockets, if we chose to. In future episodes, I will wrap up the science purchases, looking for contracts, and building rockets in like a separate special feature. Those are sort of integral parts of the game and stuff like that, but I'll make sure that they're separate, kind of a separate special feature, so we can focus on the actual launching and flying during the regular episodes. But this is a special thing. This is a serious kickoff, so we're going to go ahead and build all those rockets while we're in here. We still need to build something that's capable of reaching space. And now we have some bigger stuff, right? Actually, we don't have any bigger stuff. What did we end up with? Oh, we have radial decouplers. We have winglets. Aerodynamic nose cones. We do have a new science instrument. Let's go ahead and attach this new science instrument. I don't think this one's going to reach orbit either by the time it's said and done, because I haven't done anything fundamentally different, or not going to do anything fundamentally different to it. I will demonstrate how to add a radial stage, though, with some aerodynamicness to it. Engines, you know what we can do. Let's use a couple of these fleas. Set their thrust limit to... No, we'll make them boost at full velocity. Now, it is very important that your craft be as aerodynamic as possible, so we'll stick those nose cones on there just for that one. I want to bring the stages down here. So now I'll set up a little bit more of an advanced staging on this thing. I'm going to go ahead and add... No, we're going to fly with what we've got. I'm going to set up a little bit more call this the breacher. I'm going to set up more of an advanced staging type of thing. So these two engines, you can see them highlighted here, will launch, will start off. Then they will decouple, and I'm going to go ahead and move this stage, or this item, into that stage. So at the same time these decouple, this motor will activate, and it's configured just like it was before, 51% thrust. Then I'm going to move this one in here, so when this stage goes off, this rocket motor will activate immediately, and also when this stage decouples, the parachute will basically turn on, and we'll turn the pressure down to 0.2. See if we can't get that to deploy kind of more when I want to. This rocket might not reach orbit, but it might be able to make space. At the very least, we're going to have a new science experiment to conduct on the way up. So we'll go ahead and launch that. Here we are, sitting on the launch pad with Breacher. I want to revert this flight to the vehicle assembly bay. One thing I forgot to do is that Jebediah has already got some experience. I want to give some experience to Valentina Kerman. Another pilot, basically with exactly the same stats as Jeb. Okay, Valentina Kerman is in charge of this mission. We have a different pilot, so I can spread around some of this experience and make sure I have a couple of skilled pilots able to do various missions. And we are going to kick off the first stage. There it goes. Those little fleas burning their fuel out quickly to get this rocket up underway. Gone. Second stage is doing its job. We're going to kick over to 5 degrees above the horizon. Oh, careful. We want to keep ourselves pointing as much prograde as humanly possible here. And we are picking up a large amount of speed. We're breaking the sound barrier here. So we'll see what throttle we actually need in this upper stage when we get there. Just making sure we're pointing as prograde as possible. Boom. We can back this throttle way down because we are seriously going. That apoapsis is climbing awfully fast, so I've hit the M key to bring myself into map mode. And if you click on this AP flag, it should stay. No, it's not. And we've run out of fuel. So we're not going to quite reach the atmosphere. We need to get 70,000 meters or higher to reach the atmosphere, but that is okay. We are in the upper atmosphere once again with a new experiment in the form of the materials bay. The rarefied air has caused interesting changes to gel samples. It seems like something is happening with the interior structure. And we'll keep that data and bring it back down with us as we make our descent. So the apoapsis represents the highest point in any orbit. In this case, our orbit is a ballistic orbit, or a ballistic trajectory, because it's going to interface with the ground again. But the highest point is going to be 55 kilometers above Kerbal. Once we reach that point, I'll decouple the stage and activate the parachute. Another crew report here. Repeating this experiment doesn't do us any good, so I'm going to go ahead and just reset that. And here we have it, 55 kilometers. Coming up on the highest point in our orbit. You can see our vertical speed indicator is switching directions, which means we're going to be falling any moment. Let's get rid of that stage, activate the old parachute, and let this ship fall down on its own. And I will catch you guys once again at splashdown for this third launch in Kerbal Space Program. We are coming in hot and fast. There goes our parachute. Alright, I'll see you guys on splashdown. Alright, we are about 75 meters away from landing, and we did get some more messages. We got a speed record of 750 meters per second, and a distance record of 17 kilometers. So we're 17 kilometers away from the Kerbal Space Center. Splashdown, another successful mission. Since we have goo canisters that haven't been used yet, we'll go ahead and observe one in the water. It says the goo escapes into the water. Well, that's going to give us a little bit of science at least. Now we know that the goo sort of seems to like water. Wonder what that's all about. Let's recover. We gained 26.6 science, leaving us with 38 total. Got our parts back for 3,377 funds back. Our crew gained some experience, and we now have 171,000 funds with which to use for various rockets and things like that, including potential upgrades to the buildings. But we'll worry about that kind of stuff a little bit later. Let's keep on cranking away on some of this science. 38.8. All these ones cost 45. General rocketry. We'll research this one for 20 science and buy all of the parts. And we have enough for survivability, which gives us a service bay, some radial mount parachutes, research that, and all the parts for 5,000 funds. And now we're sitting with 3.8 science left. Time to go find some more. Oh, we still have these 2 active contracts. We need to orbit Kerbal and set an altitude record and escape the atmosphere. So all signs point now towards us being able to at least break the atmosphere with the stuff that we have. So I'm going to reconfigure things a little differently here. Instead of relying just on that single parachute now, I'm going to start relying on a couple of radial mount parachutes. Like so. On aerodynamics, we'll stick a nose cone on the top of this thing. For fuel tanks, we will use the larger fuel tank, and we're going to stick a couple of them on there. Like this. It's time to put on a serious set of engines. We are shooting for orbit, and we're not saying stop. Nose cones on there. We want this to be highly controllable while we have this stage mounted, so we're going to go like so. And it's time to really take a look at some of the tools we have for building good balanced rockets. One of them is the center of mass. So we have our center of mass in front of any lift we have going on. So any wing surfaces basically we have. In this case, we want to kind of keep our rocket lawn darting if at all possible. So we have these wings here providing us with some... Uh-oh. Mass 21 tons. This rocket is too large for our facilities. But anyways, I was saying the mass, or the center of mass, is in front of this thing, so actually that'll help us keep it nice and controllable. Center of thrust is just fine. Center of lift is down there. There aren't any lift forces going on. So we can't launch this thing right now. What we need to do, actually, is upgrade our launch pad for 75,000 funds. So we'll go ahead and do that. Launch pad now actually looks a little bigger. Close. Giving us more weight tolerance. We still have the same number of maximum parts, but we can have more weight. And there are no other concerns regarding this vessel. So, Orbiter 1. I'm going to set these thrust limit to 50% at first. Yeah. It occurs to me I want to take a quick look at my staging. That one's correct. They decouple, and this one goes. They decouple, and that one goes. They decouple, and we're into parachutes. Yep. That's exactly what we want. You can hear my daughter in the background. So reaching orbit is a little bit about going up, but mostly about going sideways. So we're going to figure out how to get ourselves going sideways at a reasonable time. And we're launching. Here we go. So this thrust limiter might have been a little bit low. We'll go ahead and revert that and correct that right now. 50% is too low. How about 75-ish? There we go. This guy's headed up. Once again, I want to kind of push it over. It's much harder with fins because it requires the torque of this vessel to do so. But now we're about 5 degrees, so we can actually reliably sort of let the atmosphere take care of the rest. See the sway We're pushing through the sound barrier here. Yep. Pushing through the sound barrier. That stage is done. Continue thrusting on this one, just basically to maintain speed. Let's go ahead and I'm going to keep some pressure on our control surface to keep pushing our rocket over a little bit. And what we'll do actually is keep an eye on the apoapsis here. Everything's looking good. Solid fuel is almost gone. The stage is going to be spented. And that is it. Okay, now what we can really do is use the throttle. What we want to do is just sort of apply minimal thrust. I want my rocket to naturally kick over, like so. Keep it facing prograde. Now that we're this far up in the atmosphere, we don't have to worry about a rocket flipping over arbitrarily, so we can push that up there. So we got this up to 75,000 meters, or 75 kilometers above the ground. And when we get rather close to the apoapsis here, where our prograde marker is really close to the horizon, then we'll kick up the thrusters once again and get ourselves into basically extend this orbit as much as possible. So now atmospheric forces are so negligible that we can basically fly sideways. We're going to go ahead and continue doing that and get ourselves up to the apoapsis here. Just coasting up any minute and we'll be up there. Check our situation here. 70,000 meters. We have reached space and completed this contract. So once we get much closer, or not much closer, we'll go ahead and kick on the engines again and get ourselves into orbit. So just a bit here, and or something hopefully approaching an orbit. We might actually be able to make orbit with this thing. Something close to it, maybe. No, it's going to be a long ballistic trajectory, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Speed records are still being made. This is going to give us one heck of a distance record, and that is all the fuel we have. So we're going to get that done. Let's go to the map view and get ourselves some science done while we're in space. Mystery goo observation number 1, keep that data. Mystery goo observation number 2, keep that data. Observing the materials bay, it says the microgravity has greatly affected the growth of crystalline structures. Loose objects are also flying around the bay in a very messy but fascinating way. Keep that data. And a crew report. It seems we are very much in space right now. The sky seems to be mostly below us. So we are now at a point where our ship is just going to coast back in the atmosphere. In fact, we're starting to interface with the atmosphere right now. So I am going to yep. Got a distance record. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this bottom stage and prepare ourselves for re-entry. Because we're actually going to re-enter at some relatively high velocity. And hopefully these parachutes will be enough to save us from certain destruction. We will see in a little bit. I'll go ahead and fast forward to that point. We are nosing in at a pretty high velocity. Bingo, there go the parachutes. Luckily they can stand up to some heat. Oh, 15 G's worth of deceleration on those things. But Valentina seems to have handled it just well. Not a problem for her. And we're coming down safe and sound. So hang tight and I will catch you guys at splashdown. All right, coming up on Splashdown finally once again. Everything safe and sound here. Last recovery for this particular episode. So here we have, during the mission, 50.3 science earned, plus science earned by completing contracts. About 3,500 or almost 3,600 in funds worth of parts recovered. And Valentina Kerman has not gained any experience because she hasn't reached orbit yet. I think the next experience point is for reaching orbit. That is going to be it for episode 1 of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. The retail version is finally available on Steam. It's also available on Good Old Games. And it's also available for purchase on their website. So I'll be featuring this game on my channel as its retail version as we work our way through career mode, continually getting upgrades and stuff like that. If you're interested, the next part that we'll be playing will be sort of a special feature where I spend the science, select another contract, and build the rocket for the next launch, which will be reaching orbit in addition to whatever other contracts are available. So stay tuned for that, and the actual launch itself and flying will be its own episode. So stay tuned for that in a few days. Until then, I will say this: it's not rocket science. It is rocket science. Something about rocket science. Goodbye!